I'm David Grasso. Welcome back to another Millennial Minute. Today's big question: should we gather with our families for Thanksgiving? I'm going to, but some other people are not. You've already heard from both of our guests. They're friends of Bold, Nate Lerner and Christian Watson. So we're going to start with you, Nate. So you say, you've been really strict with your parents, right? You're standing outside in the cold, you're wearing masks. But what if your parents already had it, right? Christian talked about every family has individual circumstances, right? Should we take those into account when we're planning Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I think there's always circumstances to take into account. For example, I'm probably going to get together with some friends. We're young, we're healthy. I trust them. I know they've been behaving responsibly with social distancing and mask wearing. But that being said, keep in mind if we need to, the main thing we need to do is encourage people to on the side towards no, that you shouldn't go see your family. The baseline understanding needs to be that you shouldn't do this. You should only do it if you do have special circumstances, like, a family member is, likely not going to be around next year, or if you know that everyone is healthy for certain, or your travel is limited. But keep in mind, even if your family is fine and it's limited, if you're traveling to see them, that's putting others at risk. If everyone in our country is doing that, that's going to increase the spread of the virus. We have to really have big picture thinking in our approach to this and set expectations from the federal government on down that Americans need to be smart and safe and conservative in their approach to this.
Yeah, Christian, you said exactly the opposite, that you don't want a top-down effect with this. You want people to make their own decisions and take responsibility and own their decisions.
Right, and I think baked into Nate's arguments are a series of assumptions that just cannot be logically proven. I mean, one, he's saying that that just going to your family, regardless of your individual health history, is possibly a spread for the virus. Again, that's not. The virus is very fickle. The virus is very, the nature of it is very, very different. I mean, it depends. I mean, if there's no logical reason to believe, that you're actually going to transmit it or whatever. And if you take precautions on the way you're getting to your family's house, there's also no logical reason to believe you're going to transmit it either. So just because you go see your family does not mean you're putting others at risk. That's nonsense. Look, people need to take their own individual circumstances into account and then take those forward whatever decision they make. And I don't think that you can really assume that there's some sort of evil COVID lurking within our bodies without actually having any kind of evidence. You gotta be logical about it, dude.
Christian, you're making me laugh, but I'm gonna have to give Nate a chance to respond to that. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that it's in reply. I think one thing we've seen that Americans, frankly, have not always used their best judgment with this pandemic. If you look at the stats in the U.S., how bad it's been, how we're up to 180,000 cases per day, 1,000 deaths per day, and how much ignorance there still is around this pandemic, and how many people still see it as, oh, I wear a mask to protect me, when it's really the other way around. It concerns me, and that's really where my view is coming from, is that the government needs to change its rhetoric around this. Yeah, if you're going to a small gathering, if you're driving there, if you're not interacting with people on the way, you're wearing a mask all the way, and it's a small get-together with your family who is okay, and several of you have been tested recently, that's fine, of course. But honestly, the message coming from the top needs to change. It needs to be much more conservative. It needs to be much more scary, to be frank. And it needs to have Americans to be more sensitive and careful in their approach to this virus, because right now we've had 8-9 months of the opposite of that. And we have what we have right now, which is a pandemic that's out of control and 1,000 deaths a day. So the rhetoric and the strategy coming from the top down needs to change.
So Christian, Christian, I really want to cover, because we're short on time here, the point that you made though. Like, congratulations, you do not have COVID, but also sadly, you're now mentally ill. So I have a lot of friends who will not leave their houses. They are terrified of their own shadow. And quite frankly, they're not well now. So where do we draw the line between, thinking about our neighbor's health, thinking about our parents' health, and also our own mental health?
Right, and I like the fear of this sort of phantom virus transporting with you, even if you take all the precautions. Mental illness and those things are actually very real, and isolation and social isolation and the lockdowns and the fear that have been put out by several governors like Cuomo about this virus, and the blatant sort of stretching of the truth, all of that has caused an effect too. We can actually measure that, especially amongst, I'm a college student. Amongst college kids, this thing has terrified them. It has, most of them, some of them have gone crazy, but most of them are terrified. Some of them have, lock themselves in their rooms because they're just afraid of contracting this. And now they're questioning, okay, amid all these social distancing regulations, which are new to my college experience and this isolation, can I go back and see my family who could grant me a reprieve from this sort of temporary hell that I've been enmeshed in? What Nate is saying is that maybe not. And he's saying that there needs to be a top-down approach. And there has been in several states. And unfortunately, after lockdowns, there's still been a upsurge in uptick in cases. So I think it's just an individual calculation that must ultimately be made by you.
Yeah, Nate, I'll give you the last word here because we're out of time. Where do we draw the line? Because we do have to preserve our mental health, but obviously physical health counts as well, especially during a pandemic.
Right. Well, the same way you can, if you're looking to people to make smart decisions about how they approach a pandemic, you can also do it with their mental health. There's no reason you can't get together with a friend or two or go for a walk and take care of yourself. And I think, again, the government, I'm not saying the government can solve all our problems, but we should look to them to be of an assistance during a pandemic. And so they need to be sending clear guidelines, clear instructions on, this is how you can be smart and safe during a pandemic. This is also how you can be smart and safe with your mental health. And right now, the problem is we're not getting any of that. And you might get some of it from the states, but to be frank, the federal government has a lot more power and influence than any state government does. And that's where we need to see a change in approach.
Well, Nate, we're about to find out in a new Biden administration and not too long. So on that note, Christian and Nate, thank you so much for being here for this conversation.
No problem.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and thank you all for watching. We wish you a very happy holiday season, regardless of what decision you make to spend it with your families, without your families. Either way, all the best from all of us at Bold TV. We'll see you soon.